Okay, we're going to begin. We're going to talk about Hagassah today. Hagassah is of the more fascinating um, topics. I guess that's the right way of talking about it. Fascinating in the Lashonis of the Mishnah Berurah, the Lashonis of the Paiskim. We already really opened up the Pandora's box of Hagassah when we tried to figure out the chilik between Tavlinim and um, and Savaim, I guess we could call it. The chilik between Sifyud Ches, that the Elvis and the Kadera, you could keep on cooking and cooking, whereas Tavlinim have an end point. And we were trying to figure out where do you put tea in the equation, in the fact that we had diametrically opposed opinions of Ramesha. I guess we could call it versus Rafal, because it's not a fair way to say it, but we'll just say it that way for simplistic purposes. What tea does. That's really how we started the world of Hagassah. But let's go back and let's try to do this properly to figure out what exactly is going on over here. And okay, so we start with the Gemara in Be'ah. We're just going to go a little bit in order. So the Chayiv, it's Gemara in Shabbos as well. The Gemara in Shabbos is a little bit different. The Gemara there says v'nichosh shema magisba v'nichosh, perhaps indicating it's a lower level. You should be concerned, maybe. That's our Gemara's. Lamaisa, there's really different parts of the sugya is to define what is Hagassah, and whatever this Hagassah is, at what level it's aser, it's mutter, at what level we're going to be machmir. This is the marmakim. It's a very important marmakim because anytime something's going to be aser because of a level of mihur habishal, mikariv habishal, the marmakim is going to be sifyud ches. Because anytime you're going to try to say, well, you're not doing anything, you're going to have to ask yourself, and according to the kolba, you were doing something? Something? So maybe you're going to say, okay, but the evidence, okay, fine, maybe. But what's l'chatchila? And the $1 million question we're going to have to get to, can you cover the cholent pot in the flame? So on one hand, you think, the cholent's fully cooked, what could be the problem? On the other hand, you think, no. Oh, how to get them covered? God. Talking about putting it back down. How will lift it up? A malach came, lifted the cover, and you come into the kitchen and your cholent pot cover is floating midair. So I did it. Maybe you couldn't. I'm not getting involved in that. I'm just saying you have the cholent pot cover. Can you put it on your crack pot? So again, on face value, you would think, what's the problem? But then you have to say, well, what was the problem with Hagassah? That seemingly we're all going to be machmir, maybe perhaps al ha'ish. This is going to be the reason that Paiskim are going to speak out that closing the oven door potentially is the problem, depending if the food is fully cooked or not, because of kirav abishal. So whenever you're coming to deal with mikari of abishal, this is going to be a subset of the conversation. I will just point out, not really our conversation. I don't know if we ever fully came back to this, and it recently came up, is in the world of Kirav Abishal, that when you open your oven on Shabbos, you have to take out all the food. So we mentioned you don't, and I think we said Rav Heinemann says you do. I think that's how, that's in the way to my brain, so I'm assuming I said it that way. I don't know if I did or I did not. But that's what Rav Heinemann says. It's a fascinating machlekes, which is a Yisraelistic machlekes, really Rav Henkin versus Rav Zalman, whether you're allowed to use a fridge on Shabbos, whether you're allowed to use an oven on Shabbos. How do we handle, is it a psik reisha, is it a grama, the thermostat, and all those areas? And that's really the road you have to go down to there, that Rav Heinemann eventually comes on, that you can't leave anything in the oven when you close the door. He says it about an oven, he says about a warming jar. It's a fascinating part. I'm really just pointing it out as a marmakim shabai. Even on the Shabbos mode. Even on the Shabbos mode. So again, it's really not our sugya. I'm pointing it out for two reasons. Because number one, here we're seeing that Kiruv Bishul goes very, very extreme. That's really where I'm pointing it out. But it happens to be, ironically, this came up somewhere else, and I realized I don't know if we ever spoke about it. So I'm sort of giving us a marmakam that what the Ilam Shalach. I don't know if Rav Heinemann has a proper tshuva about it. They have extensive documentation, but he holds it's a vart in the nichale of the oven, that if there's food in the oven, then everything becomes nichale, and therefore it's aser. Masha'inkin, if there's no food in the oven, it's not. So even on Shabbos mode, there is an eventual heating that's going to happen, even on Shabbos mode, even if the thermostat, whatever it is, and therefore he wants the taina that everything, if there's food left in the oven, it becomes nichale, and it's all aser. It's a, what? Separation dichale, even if it's a gram, but eventually it's dichale, it's always going to be nasir rabban. So just a fascinating deep dive into a very kloliistic machlekes between separation, dichale, grama. Fine, that's on the side. But now let's really go into our sugya. First of all, Ayom said they want to handle what's called bishkol tzarkai. So if the chalon is not mavushkol tzarkai, okay, we know everything's asa. That's not a shaila. Can't even take it with a spoon, right? Which Shartian points out in Kaflam Zayin that if it's not fully cooked, you can't even take it with a spoon. You got a problem. You got to pour out the old contents of the pot. Even if it's shalei al eish, which is fascinating. Shmir Shabbos points it out explicitly. Chayz Mishmur Kafidal says it as well. What if you're not sure? Okay, so if you're not sure, Granda the Bir Halacha in Sifdalid back in Devrim Masel Shayach said the suffix loyim farm nistbashel kol tzarkoi. He said Asr loy lachziroi. He was machmir Shmir Shabbos in Sif Mem Aleph wants to say similarly. Okay, that's not really what I want to talk about. Let's go into Hagassah. So we have a kolbay. That's short it's going. And you want to do a chazara, yeah. And maybe, well, Hagassah is going to be the same thing, l'chayra. So we have a kolbay. Kolbay in Siman Lamed Aleph says, Demagis chayiv. Listen to his words. Very important because we're going to, I learned an incredible Shlomo Zalman that I'm going to share with everyone in a few minutes. But kolbay is a rishon. Yes, Rabbi Davis? Thank you. Kolbay is a rishon. The magis is chayiv mishum avashel. Afilu bekadera mavusheles kol zman shialish. It seems there's no way to budge in reading the kolbay, meaning that he says it's aser. This, of course, how it's brought down in the Magen Avram, in the Geraz. Lamaisa, the Mishnah Berurah's lashon is very interesting, right? What's Mishnah Berurah's lashon in Kuf Yuchas? V'beis Yosef kasa b'shema kolbay tigshi aleish chayiv Hagassah avilu b'shel kusar. Interesting. And what Mishnah Berurah? What do you hold? Beis Yosef says b'shem the kolbay. And Rebbe Mishnah Berurah, what's your psak? So we're going to get to the right to Lahachmir. Yeah, we're going to get to Shartian. We're going to get to everything. Good. We're going to get to it all. But this already is the first, when the Mishnah Berurah quotes the kolbay, he almost forgives us. Okay. But it's a Ramah, right? So there's every end of the world, because Ramah says, Yish nizar aft b'kedera b'chol inyan. What does the word kol mean? All. What does all include? All of the above, everything. So it's very difficult. Lamaisa, so what is the chumrah? So we last time mentioned from Ramosha, which is Dalad and Dalad Tes, about the kartin deloy nitzbashel kol sarkot. We'll get back to Ramosha in a moment. We mentioned from the Shartzion in Kuf Memchas v'loy ida atam. But it's interesting, in that Ramosha, in Dalad and Dalad Tes, Ramosha says, "Actually, move on adavar," even though it's not understandable. A little bit I could understand that it happens many times. Shira harbe pamim, that there's that kartin in the corner. Okay, interesting lashon of Ramosha. There's another Ramosha that they quote in Dibris, which is a little bit different. In Aleph Chav Hara Kuf Chavav, that over there Moshe says, "Dal yedei Hagassah nase shove kol atavshil b'chamimus ubeatam uchedoime mashaloi haya ze beloy Hagassah zu Moshe was like, why do you stir a pot? You stir the pot, right? Why are you stirring it? If everything is cooked, why do you stir it? So Zakra Moshe B'Shul Zeu Magis, that what? There's something happening that wasn't there before you stirred. That's what Moshe wants to say. And the chiddush is that that's called bishul. Correct. But there's something happening. The shaveh kol atashel b'chamimas u'ba'atam that he wants to call bishul. Interesting. Now another interesting shot. Rafalk or his Talmud over here quotes a sefer Shari Bina from, and he tells us who it's from because he knows that you're not going to know who wrote that sefer. From, because we don't have our Svarim guru. From Rav Tzvi Krishalevsky, the great Rosh Hashiva, Tzimach Chav Zayin, that he says that he's medaik the Rambam. The Rambam says Hagassah is mitzarche abishal. What does it mean? Hagassah is mitzarche abishal. He says it's not because of Kir Bishal, because it's Bishal called Tarka, right? Rav Yiskash. Ella, the Kivon Hagassah he mitzarche abishal. What does that mean? Shein derech hamivashlim ba'ashkichom shelo yiyachrech. You don't want it to burn at Hashel Michai Ma'ish. Harizeh nechlam mlechas bishal v'aser min atera. Afal pisha inei pu'ulas bishal mamish. Saying a moiridik chiddush, which the Talmud over here says, v'yasei we find similarly in the Safnas Paneach, that he learns also b'das Rambam, that there are malachais that are not av and not toldais, but they're the mitzarchei hamalacha. And a mitzarchei hamalacha gets the shem hamalacha, a fascinating chiddush. That it's not real bishul, but because this is the thing that you do, it's nichlal and bishul. Now, happens to be, what? No. He says, I ain't Mishnah Berurah. It could be, I would assume Rashi Kishlevsky was a much longer shtickle. It probably was a Gantt share that he gave, and you look over there. And the Safs Maniach has other examples. But to me, this Grada sounds very similar to the way that Ramesha and the Dibros is writing. And what you're doing is, why do you stir a pot? You're doing something. So they're learning that's what the malacha is. I mean, personally, this is the only answer that actually makes a dot of sense. Not that I'm arguing any of the other answers. But to start tining, which is what we spoke about last time, there's the one guy uncooked. You run into such issues. So we had to come along and say bittul. And Ramesh himself sounds that way in the Igros. But he himself is saying, ulai ksas tam. He's not so happy with it. So this at least gives us a little bit, I think, of an understanding. But now, there's another whole camp. Oh, we have to get to all that. In a chanami. That's what he says. He says move the taste. Ramesh says move the taste. That's what Ramesh says. Ramesh says, he says, in the Dibros, that's what Ramesh says. Shave kol atavshel b'chamimus ubehatam. That's exactly what Ramesh says. There's another whole camp over here. Because we're now in camp D'Araisa. Which is, where do you get that from? Who in the world said anything about something not normally cooked to cook? What does that mean? But then why are you stirring it? Because that means it's stirred. What does that mean? When we learn muksa, and we're going to say that a keli shlach heter you can't touch for no reason at all. So everyone says, Slim, why are you touching it? So famously, the Aruch HaShulchan says, you have nerve and you play with things on the table. You're not going to the pot and serving it because you. So that's a different case. Now you're just giving me a different case. No, you give me a different case. No, that's called you're taking from the bottom of the pot. Okay, I don't know. I will quote the Shartian later. Weiter. There's another camp over here, by the way. This is Camp D'Araisa. There's Camp D'Rabbanan. And this also makes a lot of sense. There's a whole camp, and Ramesh himself, in other tshuvos, says, and based on a Tver Shmuel on the Rosh, says the Din D'Rabbanan. What's the Din D'Rabbanan? And this grada, after you finish learning Bishul, this makes so much sense. I'll just quote you Ramesh. Ramesh is in Dalid at the end of Samach Aleph, as well as Dalid ches and tes, and maybe a bissel and yud. Rashi says this a few times. He throws this line in. He says you can't take one that's on the ish, even if it's fully cooked. Why? Why not? The shema yite, you might make a mistake. The yachshev and think al inay mevusheles. The shema mevusheles is called tzarkoi, as its Tzfar Shmuel says, and you want to say that's what the Ramah means. Lechatchila yesh li zoher b'chol inyan, meaning midrabanan. We're worried you're going to come to make a mistake. That's what he wants to say. And Ramosha, listen how Ramosha learned the Ramah. I learned the Ramah. Lechatchila yesh b'chol inyan. Ramah holds it's aser. It's like Ramosha. Al Ramah sever deleka b'zeh iser. El zihirus ba'alma. Just be careful. Which personally changed my entire world. Because you learned the Ramah. I thought that the whole sugya starts that the Ramah says aser b'chol inyan. So we have to contend with the Ramah almost. So anything you're going to be saying, the Ramah is like this super machmir, or we're going to have to like sledgehammer into the Ramah that kol inyan only means whatever. And that's sort of how the Mishnah Berurah learns, right? Mishnah Berurah sounds like he came from this thing, everything's aser, and like he slowly waters it down. We have to get to all the shyness. It's like Ramesh, you learned the Ramah wrong. It's not an iser. Zehirus ba'alma. Fascinating. And that's what he says. Without turning it over. Fine, he goes weiter and weiter. He says, he keeps on saying that according to Tzfar Shmuel, but it could be that the Zehiras Ba'alma, Shamash Barama, is only when he took it off the Ish. Valzen, that's why the Mishnah Berurah says, to loy nehigin lahachmer b'zeh. Afaroy to lachmir, only be machmer by Hagassah mamish. Or Moshe's mamish telling you that all came from the fact that the Ramah is only talking about a Zehiras Ba'alma. Avaboid al Ish, Ulai, he holds it in this Rabbanan. So Moshe just like really just changed the whole Motzei Mechaveri, how he's learning. He wants to learn that really it's a Zehirus, and maybe Aleish you should be Machmir, because maybe there's a Rabbanan. Not everything's Aser, and we got to figure out where that comes from. Everything's really mutter. Nothing here makes any sense. You should just be careful. Why should you be careful? It's like Zera. It's all like all the Zera Rabbanans. You might come to do something else. So Aleish, Ulai, he'll be make masking that it's a Diraban. And that, so that, I do not know. That's a very good question. I would assume he's saying that the Ramah learned the kolbay that way. That's what it sounds like. And even then, it's hard to understand because what the Ramah learned the word chayiv as the Rabbanan. But that's what Tzfar Shmuel says. Tzfar Shmuel on the Rush. Now, it's not really so fair what I just said because he's not talking to the kolbay. Correct. So, you have to learn this tshuva Ramesha properly. I'll throw out a suggestion. I don't know if I'm saying is emes. Can't really be emes what I'm about to say, but why the laughter? I'll say it anyways. It almost sounds like in Ramesha that he's saying that the Ramah is going with the Rush and not the kolbay. It's only a Derabanan, not a Deraisa. And in that Derabanan, it says a year is Ba'alma. That's what it sounds like. I don't know. Yishladin, Ayin Sham. But what we take out of this Ramesh is a few very important things. Number one is how we understood the Ramah. And number two is that the whole Isser of Hagassah, now we have a little bit more of a tam. It might be a Gzeira Atu something else. Rishon Zalman says very similar. He says, Beinei Abriyos, Ein Hagassah Nires Kimavashel, and you might come to make a mistake. Okay, now, Rishon Zalman in Mincha Shleima, Tinyana Yud Beis Beis, comes along and he says, Be'ikar adavar, Hashetu laniyas taiti, sheyesh kan shibush b'divrei hakolboy. It's Hashit, Tom Zalman Arbach's pen is talking. In Minchas Shleima. In Minchas Shleima. Again, Tinyana, Yud Beis Beis. I did not look it up in the Sefer inside, so Ayin Shah.
The old Tinyana or the new Tinyana?
Tinyana Beis Gimel. That's the new one. Yeah. It's impossible to find. Impossible to find the Minchas Shleimas. We'll look it up. It sounds like it's from his pen. It says Vekar Adavar. It's Pashit. There has to be a mistake. Ke'ein lahalis ladas sheyichtoiv. Because you want to think that he writes. It's not possible. Ein lahalis ladas that he writes. V'kaim malon demigis chaim mishum avashal v'gdem v'rsh kozman shelish. Sharei says Rosh Zalman. Motzul lechatchil loser tavshel meish adas lachzir alei shiketuma laver v'kira shikru v'ktuma v'ishtatana g'dayla. You can take it and put it back. Kol shekeishi makam leimish. Is there Torah? Good. So Rosh Zalman is arguing the Mishnah Berurah. What's the problem?
And everyone before him?
Yeah. No, everyone before him. There's no one before him.
So makes you sit down.
Yeah. So everyone, Zakar Zalman, everyone, yes, everyone quoted the Kolboy and took his text. Says Rosh Zalman, it's not possible. Pashit leniyastaiti, it's a mistake. Rak Sricha, no, of course, Mishnah argued. Rak Sricha lahagia b'dvarov. He continues. He doesn't mince words. Rak Sricha lahagia b'dvarov. Ba'oifen sha'oiser rak midraban. What should I tell you? This is what I find absolutely incredible. Maybe even we could use the word crazy, as someone just said.
What?
No, Shartzin's still embracing nonetheless.
He's saying out of the top.
No, the Shartzion embraces it. Shartzion doesn't say it doesn't exist.
Yeah, he's not making it up. He's saying out of the which means this is not understand it.
Shartzion. I'm going to do this. What? What did I do wrong?
Get someone else to get it.
Okay. Ranas and Tzvi. How do Ranas and Tzvi eat lunch?
I don't know.
If there's one way in the world that could be like Ranas and Tzvi. Ranas and Tzvi would be, in the dining room, and he had to eat lunch. It's time for lunch. So he would get up and he'd start walking to the kitchen. If there's someone there, they would say, Rashiva, what do you need? He'd say, it's time for lunch. And they bring him lunch. And if there's no one there, he would go. And he'd walk and he'd get the tray of the food with the plate and the this was back in the plastic dish days in the mirror. Remember the plastic dishes? You after your time. Not the throwaway.
You use them.
Avada, plastic dishes. Blue, with the cut marks on the plate. Yeah, Avada. He would go and he'd pick it up with every thing shaking and he'd try. And by the time he'd get it back to the table, there'd probably be nothing left in there. And there were plenty of times that someone would catch him, like when he's back at the table, like, Shiva, what are you doing? I'm just eating lunch. Why do you ask? I should ask someone to help me. He didn't understand the whole conversation. So if there's one way in the world, I could be like, it must be one way. Yeah, good. Today, I wanted one way to be like, I mustn't see. Weiter. Okay. Now, so what do we come out with? Tachlis, you're all correct. Mishnah Berurah seems to take on that as a deraisa, 100%. We have a fasting Rosh Zalman. We don't know what the reason. Maybe it's because the guy in the corner is not cooked. Maybe it's like Ramesha because it's making a shavius in the time of the chamimus. Maybe it's this fasting where Tzvi Kishlevsky, who's medayik in the lashon of the Rambam, similar to Tzaf Maneach, that it's a tzarchei abishal, incredible Torah. Maybe it's a derabanan, like Rosh Zalman is saying. Maybe Ramesha says that the whole thing is a here's balma. When all the dust settles, tachlis, how does it all play out? So now, again, and I'm going to quote what I used to think. I'll tell you what I used to think. I have my notes here. I pulled them up. And I used to think, when you finish the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah has this incredible lashon, V'haroitze lahachmir. Roitze lahachmir. You want to be machmir. I don't know. I want to be machmir. I have no clue what that means. I don't know what that means. But on the other hand, right? Yachmir b'Hagassah mamish. Avloitzia b'kaf in lahachmir klal. So what I used to think, and this is what I have in my notes over here, if it's ein loy ala ish, what's the halacha? The way I wrote it over here, and this was edited by the great Rabbi Davis as well. Yesh, that's where the Hebrew is probably correct. Yesh, I won't tell you what it looked like beforehand. Yesh li zoher mela hagis. You should be zoher to be magis. Yesh li zoher. Avol mutter loitzi b'kaf afilu mitachtas hakter. Meaning, afilu shaloy ala ish. Lemaisa, the Mishnah Berurah wasn't just stop wasting ink telling me Haroitza Lachmir. It would seem a Yid that learns the Mishnah Berurah and learns the Sugya and wants to know what to do. I would think that the right thing is to be Machmir. That is what I always thought the halacha was. This is what I thought the halacha was until we relearned the Sugya together now. That's what I thought the halacha was. Now, in light of everything we just said, let's continue and let's see what we come out with. Because in my mind, you're pretty watered down already. We're pretty watered down, especially in light of Rosh Zalman. I've almost lost my cheshek to be machmer even alish. I don't want to be blasphemous. But Rosh Zalman taught me that maybe perhaps ulai. Okay, so let's continue. Oh my, we're running out of time. So what? I mentioned your steak already. I was Zain mentioning your steak. If those want to know about Bushkol Tzarkai, we mentioned it. The Chazon Ish, yeah, the Chazon Ish famously, no, you missed the first 2 minutes of Shir. I mentioned you. I
said there are those that want to know.
Right, exactly. That's what you told me to mention. Unless there one more you wanted. Exactly. You got your shot. Is that all you wanted? You wanted by name. Rabbi Katzman wanted us to. Okay, good. Now you get to Zain. Zok the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish famously says, listen to the Lashon Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish, so we all know Chazon Ish says you're allowed to take the food on the flame. Right? We all know that. Why he says that, how he says that, maybe we have to get to, we're not going to get to there today. But what about Hagassah al Ish? What does the Chazon Ish hold? No? What does the Chazon Ish hold about Hagassah al Ish? Zok the Heilige Chazon Ish. Ba'achri shadas Ramban. V'harashba v'rash v'aran. Ta'achshav yisha kol tzarka shein bo misham bishel. Ein bo misham megis. V'magin mishnah pirish gam das Rambam kin. Evsher lahakel bedavar. Tuma Hagassah al Ish. V'amnam b'Hagassah mamish bizman shel ish roi lifroish. Chazon Ish. Roi lifroish from Hagassah mamish. Ach, why? Shel das Rambam, it's a deraisa. Kifi mashe pirshu akolbay. Mikol makoim. Little bakavshu rak b'drabanan. Kinemash loshen Rambam oiser. Nimzik vashel vashel umashu shin vashel mamish. Yish lismaich lo hakel. Even when it's alish. So Hagassah al Ish, what's the halacha so far according to the Chazon Ish? Roi. Okay. So that's a Chazon Ish. We don't call it the Chazon Ish. We all know that, right? So it comes on the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says, "Was? We just know we don't call it the Chazon Ish. So let's continue. So we all know that Yerab the Chayonim say it's aser. Mishnah Berurah comes along and he says, Mishnah Berurah Kuf Yud Gimel and Kuf Yud Zayin quotes the Beis Yosef is Mekel, Aval, which you all know the Klal, Bel Yerabba Mask, the Yish Lesser Bezeh. Comes on Rav Moshe. And again, there's so many different Rav Moshes over here, so we got to try not to get a headache. But when they ask Rav Moshe, Tachlis, Yesh Lachash Lamasha Hevi Amagin Avram B'Shem Agolbay. Zok Rav Moshe, Hagassah b'Nizvash called Sarki She'enai Ala Ish, Leka Iser Klal, as the Beralacha said. And as the Mishnah Berurah said, Leka Iser Klal. Mishnah Berurah said Leka Iser Klal? I don't know. I thought the Mishnah Berurah said Aroitzi L'Hachmer Yachmer B'Hagassah Mamish. So Rav Moshe learns, what do those words mean? Leka Iser Klal. Avul Ba'oida Aleish. So now Rav Moshe goes with that Iser D'Rabbanan of the Tver Shmuel, because maybe you're going to make a mistake v'chulu. So, Lamaisa, which I tell you, the Paiskim are machmir to do Hagassah al Ish. Okay. What about Shalei al Ish? So we have this Lashon Mishnah Berurah of Hareitz L'Hachmir. Comes on the Aruch HaShulchan. What does the Aruch HaShulchan say in Sif Nun Ches? Olam Noigen Hatter Loitzi HaKidney Esay Tebuch Adam Oya Kasa B'Kaf Ve'in Shom Chashash B'Zeh Va'afilu Magis Midina Mutter. No. Now shalei alish. We went off. So we said aleish. It seems like we have to be makabel that to stir it aleish, one shouldn't do. That's what it seems like it comes out. Shalei alish, Hagassah mamish. Says Aruch HaShulchan, it's mutter. V'dai lizar lechatchila ba'Hagassah. It's dai to be zar lechatchila ba'Hagassah. That was a steer. That sentence makes no sense. Part of my editing powers over here. I don't understand it. Afilu magis medina mutter. V'dai lizar lechatchila ba'Hagassah. No. It's much worse than the Mishnah Berurah. I know.
It might be the Shibush. That was a joke.
But now we're taking it a spoon. So Ramosha, that same tshuva, really comes along to address all of this. And with this, I guess we'll have to stop. Ramosha comes along and he says, because again, how did Ramosha learn? The whole thing is they're going to come to make a mistake. So once you're off the Aish, you're not going to make a mistake. Now you see he's going with that lashon on the Mishnah Berurah. V'zeu she'kosav ha-Mishnah Berurah. Aretz la'achor yachmer goes mamish. Kavanasai. She'ein b'zeh mishum yuhara. You want to know if you're being a bal gaiva to not be magis, you're not being a bal gaiva. So that's really where the sugya ends. Lamaiser Shlomo Zalman, by the way, says, and this is really where things go crazy, because I'll end with a kasha, and then I'll give it over to all so we can learn about our gaiva issues. I would think the following, and I'm not saying I don't think the following, in as much as, not that I'm arguing in Shlomo Zalman, that big of a bal gaiva I'm not, a little bit less. Shlomo Zalman, maybe I am. I'm thinking that I thought about the Shlomo Zalman extensively. Shlomo Zalman says the following is usher. L'maisa, when all the dust settles, and you go, I'm going to get to everything right now in the next minute and a half, and you go to your chalent, and the chalent is burning on Shabbos. Okay, so you have many issues, but can you pour water in the pot? By the way, that's the sugya of Hagassah. So you take it off and you add in water. L'maisa, if you just add in water, nothing's going to help. Why not? Because it's burning. So what do you want to do? You want to add in water. It's shaloi aleish. I don't want to say we just got rid of the kolboy, but like haroitz lahachmer, I'll deal with my gaiva another time. Right now I want chalent for Shabbos. So I want to stir it. And then what do I want to do with it? Put it back in the flame and let it finish cooking. Right? Yeah, does anyone have a problem with that? Seems like if you go through the checkbox, I have Tanai Chazara, Gevaldik, 5 Tanaim, I fulfilled. I added in water Shlei Aleish. I was a Gossam Amish Shlei Aleish. Okay, so I didn't do the Reitz Lachmir. Okay, I didn't that. What do I need Ramosha? What do I need Ramosha for anything? Everyone holds the Chayris and Mutter. Does anyone think why this should be a problem? Anyone? So Lamaiser Shem Zalman says Aser. Says Shem Zalman, I don't know, Aser is the right word. Perik Aleph, Ha'aret Tzadi Tes, Yesh La'ayin. Dim Nemar Dasa Livachosh B'Keder Shaged Zav Gabish. If you're going to tell me you can't stir it Aleish, even though it's fully cooked, Yehei Aser, it should be Aser. Livchosh Achrish Esira K'der Migabish. To stir it off the fire, in B'dai to Shabach Zileish. If you can put it back. Because for whatever reason it's Aser to stir it Aleish. It's like Zera, it's that kartin, it's the tam, it's the dust. So what's the chilek if you do it off the ish? That's where Shem Zalman sort of ends in a tzarch ian. Lemaisa, many gedolei apaiskim will tell you it's aser. Rabbi Nahum Lemaisa holds it's aser, or he holds Shem Zalman says it's aser. I should say, I don't know if he holds it's aser. To take it off the fire, stir it, and put it back in the fire. Hagassah on the fire. Shem Zalman's nailing you with. Your magis off the fire, but just like magis on the fire is aser, magis off the fire to put back on the fire is the same thing. Oh, so good. So what I'm going to end with is l'chayra, when all the dust settles, that we're like so far over here. We're so far. to say this is aser is very shver. It's very shver. I'll just leave it at that. And how Sham Zalman says sorry yesh la'ayin. So Sham Zalman says yesh la'ayin. So I don't have anything to add. And that's that. I will say, by the way, clear liquids. Don't worry, you have till 35. Lunch is late today. Clear liquids. Water were makel. Sham Zalman's machmir. If there's anything else in liquid, we just found there of Shmuel's makel. Again, Shmuel says no. If the ikr is broth, it's fine, even though there's other guys floating inside. Personally, I can't say I understand it for some Zalman, because whatever this chumrah is, whatever this chash is, it should apply. On water, I verstehe. Water consistently mixes itself, but once I have kinedlach and other stuff in there, I don't know. Shmuel Amai says makel, and that is the fasty sugya of Hagassah. Lunch will be at 1:36.